Hi, welcome back to Christine's Home Affairs. It's another simple project today. We're going to be making a drawstring backpack. It'll have a zippered pocket on one side, the draw cords around the side to go over your shoulder. And I know how much everyone likes to see the product before we actually get into the video, but I haven't made it yet. I wanted to show you this fabric before I cut it up. It's absolutely stunning. So can you see the bird in there? Isn't that beautiful? They look like hibiscus flowers. It's just a stunning piece of fabric. So this is what we're going to be making the drawstring backpack out of today. I think this is some kind of a curtaining fabric. It feels like it. It's very synthetic, and we'll be lining this as well. So let's get started. All right, I've cut the fabric up, and this is everything that we'll need to make this drawstring backpack. I'll put the measurements up on the screen in a moment. This is macrame cord, but you can use any type of cord. I'll be using black contrasts, so my zip today will be a number 5 continuous zip. I've got 2 tabs for the side of the backpack. I've got 2 toggles. You can use any type of toggles. If you don't actually have access to toggles, you can make little aglets to go on the end of your cord. A couple of zip pulls, because I think that I'd like to have 2 zips in the pocket. These 2 strips are the top band for the bag where we'll be gathering it at the top. I have 2 pieces for the outer fabric, so I've kind of fussy cut this a little bit so that I could have the bird at the top, and I'm going to have the pocket along the bottom here. That way you'll see the bird as a feature. And that's the other side. So that's the outer fabric, and then I've got 2 pieces for the lining, which is the same size as the outer fabric. Then I have 2 pieces for the pocket, one for the lining and one for the outer bag. And here's your materials list. Okay, we're going to start off with the pocket. So this is 16.5 inches across there and 9 inches this way. Place the 2 fabric pieces over the top of each other. I've also fussy cut this one so that I've got this little hummingbird, I guess, in the middle. This is the top of the pocket. I'm just going to turn that around so I can cut off a small section. And we're going to measure 2 inches or 5 centimetres from this top edge down. So you can measure that and then cut, or if you have a rotary cutter and ruler, you can just cut it straight out. I've placed my 2-inch line along the top edge of my fabric, and we can separate those pieces. So now we have our outer and the lining for both pocket sections. We can grab our zip, and if you have double-sided tape, I like to use that because it holds the zip in place better than pins and clips do. So along the top edge of the pocket here, we're going to place some double-sided tape, remove the paper, and then we can place our zip faced down onto this fabric. Flip that over and line that up. My zip is a little bit longer than what I need because I like to trim that down to size toward the end. Place another strip of double-sided tape along the top there, and we're going to separate the zipper tape now. So if you are using a regular zip, just continue on until you get to the end of the zip and leave it sitting aside. But in this case, I'll be separating it completely. Grab your lining, and we're going to place this with right sides facing. So flip this over, line up the side edges of your fabric, and then line up the top, and we have our lining and outer fabric together with the zip. Let's grab this side. Now this was the top outer edge of our pocket, and this is what we've cut off from here. So our other zipper tape needs to be along here, and that will only matter really if you're using a directional fabric or if you're trying to match up your patterns a little bit. Take the other side of your zip, and the zipper teeth need to be facing the top, and this tape needs to be facing me. Flip that over, and you want the lumpy side to be faced down on the green fabric. I'll run another strip of tape, and I'll place this lining over the top. Again, I'll line up the side edges and then the edge where the zipper tape is. So we have one layer of lining with the printed sides facing and this larger side of the pocket ready to go as well. Flip it over. We're going to take this to the sewing machine, and with the heavier fabric facing the top, we're going to sew all the way across both of these edges. Once we've done that, we'll bring the zipper tape out, put the lining behind the outer fabric, and then we'll go down and top stitch. Let's start with the narrow strip first. I'm running the edge of my zipper foot along the bumpy edge that I can feel in my fabric underneath here. Place the lining behind your outer fabric and pop it under your presser foot. And as you're sewing along, you'll just want to grab the lining and the outer and pull them away from the zipper tape. And I'm running the edge of my zipper foot along the top edge of that fold here, and that'll give me a nice straight line, hopefully. And then just check your work and make sure that looks all right. And I can tell you I've made a mistake. So on the other side, I didn't quite grab the fabric and have that lined up with the bottom edge of my outer fabric. All I need to do is undo these few stitches here and restitch it. So I'll go back a little bit further than I need to. And I'm just going to rip through every fourth or fifth stitch. And then go to the other side and pick up one stitch. And that should enable me to undo the rest. So I've tidied that up, and I just need to bring that fabric down to line up with the bottom edge and restitch it. And that's fixed that up. Set that one aside, and we'll do the bottom section of the pocket. And this time I will finger press the crease of the lining and top stitch again. All right, the zip's done. All we need to do is put our pulls on. It's up to you if you want to use one or two, but I figured because this is a wider bag, I'd like to actually have two sliders on there. We need to line up the edge of our fabric. So you want to line up this edge here and this. Then we can trim our zipper tape back so that it's even. And with the rounded edge facing you, place one side over your tape, the other side inside there. And you want to line up the tape so that that's nice and even, and it will make your fabric even as well. Hold it together at the bottom here and give that a push. You'll hear a click. And that's your slider on. And if it's not even and you need to do it again, you can pull that off and try again. Let's go to the other end. Bring that zip slider all the way up. And that's really just to line this up. We can trim this zipper tape back so that they're the same size. I don't trim it back to the edge of the fabric because I do like to have a little bit extra to play with. So trim that tape back so that it's nice and even. Bring this slider out of the way. And we'll do the same at this end. And it might take a couple of goes before you get it right. Sometimes it takes me 6 or 7. So I've got that held in place there. Place my finger over the little floppy bit, push, and that'll slide on nicely. It's nice and straight there. That's even. And when I come around and put these two together, there's no big kinks or anything in the way. If there is or if this is uneven when you have put the slide on, take it off and do it again. So whether you use 1 or 2 sliders, it really doesn't matter. It's personal choice and what you've got available. Let's set this aside. We'll take our outer fabric. So this is the top of the fabric. We're going to measure 1.5 inches or 4 centimetres from the outside edge, and we'll do the same on this side. And from this line down to the bottom corner, we're going to mark a straight line. We'll do the same on this side. So you'll line up the ruler from that mark we've made all the way down to the bottom corner. And then we can cut across those lines. And I'm cutting through both layers of fabric. That's the shape of our bag at the moment. We will be doing box corners later on as well. We'll set that one aside, grab your lining fabric, and we'll do the same. So from the outside edge at the top, we'll mark 1.5 inches or 4 centimetres. And you can mark the line down to the corner, or you can just cut it straight out. Set the lining aside for a moment. Before we can put the pocket onto the outer fabric, we need to close up this bottom section, flip the pocket up and the lining as well, and we'll sew straight across here. A 1/4 inch seam or 6 millimeters will be more than enough here. Turn this tube the right way out, and you can press this so that the lining sits to the back, and this will be top stitched when we place it onto our bag. Find the centre of your pocket, fold it in half, mark the centre, take the front piece of your backpack, and we'll grab our pocket, and that's going to be placed over the top of our bag here. Now we want to find the centre. Fold your outer piece in half. Hopefully you can see the chalk line I've made along the centre here, and then we're going to measure 10 inches or 25 centimetres from the bottom edge up. Mark a line at the 10-inch mark there, and this is where we want to place our pocket. We're not going to put it directly over the top like this. What we're going to do is line up the straight edge of our fabric on the top of the pocket with that mark we've made, and then we're going to sew through both layers of the pocket and sew all those layers together. Once that's done, you'll flip the pocket over and you'll do 2 rows of top stitching right along here. So the first row will be to secure the top edge of the pocket. The second row will be just a design feature, which is the same as what you see on your jeans pockets. So first of all, stitch that. Once you've done that, you can do 2 rows of top stitching. Once that one's done, line up the bottom edge of your pocket. Make sure your lining is sitting underneath. We'll pin that together really well, and you'll do 2 rows of top stitching along this bottom edge as well. I'm just going to use the edge of my presser foot as my stitching guide. Now I can flip this forward and top stitch along the edge. And then I'll run another row of top stitching beside that row we've just done. And I'm going to use the edge of my foot as my guide to run along the edge of the stitching. Alright, with that edge top stitched, let's flip around to the bottom. I've pinned the bottom section of the pocket in place, And we'll do the same thing. Top stitch the edge of the pocket in place, and then we'll do another row of top stitching right beside it. All right, we've finished our pocket. We don't want to open the zip out too far because the sliders will come off the end. What you can do now, just to secure that in place, we'll turn this around. And you can see the pocket has extended beyond the shaping of our outer fabric. I'm just going to stitch this all the way down here. That way I can cut off the ends of my fabric and the zip sliders will stay nice and secure. I'll quickly go and do that now. So all I've done is sewn very close to the edge of the outer fabric, which you can see along the back here. Let's trim the pocket. So following the straight edge all the way down to the bottom, we can taper our pocket. And the same for the other side. And that's all ready to be put together. Set this aside for now. We'll grab our narrow rectangular strips, and on the outside edge we want to do 2 narrow folds. I'm just folding that in by 1/4 inch, and then I'll fold it in again. I'll do the same on this end. Fold it in once and fold that in one more time. This is really difficult to fold because it's I think it's a curtaining fabric and the fabric's horrible. Okay, that one's ready, and we'll do the same for the other. Once you've folded the edges over on both of those pieces, you want to double check and make sure they're the same length. These are going to be the back and front of our bag, and if it's not quite right, then we'll just adjust one of them until you've got both pieces the same size. Let's take this to the machine. We'll sew down all 4 short edges. All right, they're done. Let's grab our outer fabric. I've got the front piece here. We'll find the centre of both bands and the centre of your fabric. And the back piece. What we want to do here is fold the band in half with wrong sides together. So there's the folded edge at the top there. The raw edges are going to line up along the top edge of the outer fabric and line up your centres. All right, we've got all the raw edges lined up there, and we've got a fold here. This will be for the cord to go through. And we'll do the same for the other side of the bag. Place that directly over the top, lining up the centre again. And now we can grab our lining, and we're going to place that over the top as well. So we'll have the narrow edge of the lining at the top with the wider side at the bottom. Place the right sides facing and clip all those edges together. So what you want to do is sandwich this band in between the outer fabric and the lining. And we've got an overhang here which is equivalent to our seam allowance. So that's been clipped together, and you can see our little band is in the middle there. We'll repeat for the other one. I like to line up the outside edges first, followed by the centre, and then I can ease everything else in. Let's sew down both top edges of our bag pieces. Again, I'm just using a 1/4 inch seam. And we'll do the same for the other one. Alright, we've got our band in place at the top. We've got an area for our seam allowance on the side. What we're going to do is open out the fabric so you'll have the lining separated from the outer fabric. Before I put the back and front pieces together, I want to get my little straps and place those on the edge of the bag. So just fold your strapping or webbing in half. You can use cotton tape if you don't have anything more solid. Perhaps just use a double layer. We'll line this up along the bottom edge of our pocket, and we'll do that on both sides. I'm going to quickly go and sew these in place just so they don't shift when we do the next step. Alright, we've got our loops in place here. Separate your outer fabric from your lining. Grab the other side and place that directly over the top, and we're going to pin all the sides of your lining and your outer fabric. Clip the bottom edges together, come up to the middle here, which will become the top of your bag, and we're going to line up these 2 stitching lines. If your fabric doesn't quite line up, trim off the smallest bit there. It's really not going to make any difference to the size of your bag or the overall finish of your bag. Let's find the centre or the top of our bag where these bands are. Line up those seams. On this side as well. Then go and even out your side edges. Pin or clip that together. We'll do the same for the lining. Alright, I've clipped all the outside edges together, and with the lining I've done one side and the bottom, and on the other side I'm going to leave an opening around here. So we can start here with a back stitch. So all the way across, up, along the other side, down here and across and up again, and we'll stop here with a back stitch. Then you've got your opening for turning through. Now under here we've got our band, and I can feel the end of my band right along here. So I'm going to be using a 1 centimetre seam allowance, but it may be less when I get to this section here. So I can feel the edge of the fabric, but I want to make sure that I don't actually stitch over those bands because we need those to be open when we put our cord in. So just make sure that when you get there, if you need to, you might just push that out of the way so that you can stitch down here, but otherwise it's just regular straight sewing. So back stitch here and do your 1 centimetre seam. When you come to the top section where the lining and the outer meet, I like to triple stitch over that, and I can see the lump in the band just to the side, so I can use my screwdriver and just push that in out of the way and continue to sew. I'll triple stitch where the strap is. So I've come up to the top again where that flap is. I'm just going to push that out of the way. And I'll back stitch about a hand's width from the beginning. Alright, the last thing left for us to do before we turn the bag the right way out is box our corners. If you have a feel of your fabric here, I've got the bottom edge of my pocket here, so I can't make my box corners any bigger than that. From the stitching line, I'm going to measure 2 centimetres or 3/4 of an inch, and that will be from the stitching line, not the outside edge. And follow the angle of your stitching as well. Then we can take the lining and bring that to the other side of your fabric. Line up all of those edges together and we can cut that out. So I'm cutting out the outer fabric and the lining at once. And now we can pull out the back and front, line up the bottom seam with the side seam and have them going in opposing directions. Repeat for the other side. So the side that has the pocket on it is going to want to go to the right. We'll take this to the machine and we're going to sew straight across there and across here. The lining is also in opposing directions. And we can sew those together as well. I like to triple stitch at the bottom where my corners are. So the corners have been sewn together. Take this one here and line it up with this one. And all you need to do is sew straight over that stitching line, and that keeps the lining and the outer fabric together. On the other side we'll do the same. Grab the bottom corner, bring them together. So I've got the side seams matching up. And we'll sew those both in place. So just sew those two together. Okay, that's the inside of our bag finished. Find the opening and we can bring everything the right way round. And once you've turned it the right way round and you're happy with the edges, grab your opening here, finger press your seam down, and we can go and top stitch really close to the edge from here to here. And I will quickly go and do that now. So that is the side seam closed up, and now we can poke out all our corners, neaten everything up, and once you're happy with everything, the last thing we need to sew is the band at the top. So we're going to do a row of top stitching on the main part of the bag, not on the band. What will happen is that the seam that we've got underneath from the lining, the band and the fabric will be pushed down, and you'll go and top stitch around this edge here. So as you're sewing, just make sure that you actually push the bulk of that seam to the main part of your bag. When I do this, I like to top stitch with my bag inside out. By having the bag inside out, I'll be sewing on this side, and I can just make sure that I've got these layers of fabric nice and flat, and I can see what I'm sewing and keep it nice and neat. I'll start over on one of the side seams, making sure that lining underneath is nice and flat. Okay, the top stitching has been done. Let's turn this the right way out, and then we can put our draw cord on. So we've got our box corner at the bottom here, our flaps on the side, a slight taper, nice big pocket, and our band at the top. To work out how much cord you need, grab one end, bring that down to the bottom, up along the top, across the top, back across the top, and back down to the bottom. So that's the cord for one side, and then allow a little bit extra just for tying off. And then you'll cut an extra piece. I'm allowing 76 inches or 2 meters in total. With my cord, what I like to do is use an adhesive tape, tightly wrap the end of the cord. So I'll twist that and do that tightly and roll that tape or wrap that tape into a twist. It'll come into a point at the end. Do that for all 4 ends of your cord. We've got one long piece at 76 inches or 2 meters, and you'll cut that in half and wrap all the ends. Grab yourself a bodkin or even a safety pin, and with the bodkin you can squeeze that over one end of your cord and bring the metal ring down, and that will hold that taut whilst you thread it. Alternatively, you can use one of these and pop that through and feed that through as well. And if you don't have either of those, use a safety pin. Starting on one side of the bag, I'll feed this cord through until I get to the other side and continue on around. Pull the cord so that you've got an even length at the ends, and this is going to come down through the loop at the bottom. Take both ends, pop them through. With the size of the toggle that we're using, this loop at the bottom is going to be a little bit large. We can stitch this closed. Take the 2 ends that you've got wrapped here, and if you've got a toggle that's got 2 holes in it, you can put them through in each hole. If you've got one that's just got one big hole in it, then you'll put the 2 pieces together, and you might even have to wrap those 2 together and feed them through the same hole. Because I've got one that's got 2, I need to press that in, pop my cord through on both sides, and that's where the tape comes in really handy. You can adjust your toggle wherever you like. I'll tie both of these off individually. If I was using a toggle with one hole, I would tie them off together. Now you can cut off the adhesive, and the toggle won't go any further. If you're concerned about the toggle coming through, go and stitch close to the edge of the cord here, but not through the cord. I'll go and do that shortly. We've got one side in. When we put the cord through, we started on this side, brought it through and out. This time we're going to start on the opposite side. I'll use the other bodkin, and I'll just thread that through like this. And keep on going. Then bring these 2 ends together so that they're nice and even. We can feed them through the loop at the bottom and then through our toggle. And we can tie that off. And there's our drawstring backpack. Gorgeous fabric. I'll quickly stitch the loop closed on the side here. All right, there we have it. Isn't that fabric absolutely adorable? I just love it. I'm really pleased that I managed to get the full bird in the picture there, and even that little hummingbird down the bottom there as well. And that's the image on the other side. Have I put that upside down? I have too. All right, don't do what I did. I've accidentally put this fabric upside down. I've used a directional fabric, so when I've cut out the tapers, I should have flipped this piece of fabric the other way around. Not to worry, the only thing that's going to see that is the back of me. We've got a huge pocket in the bottom there as well, all fully lined. You won't see any raw edges by the time you've done your top stitching. Then we've got the cord that will just sling over our shoulders. So I have no idea how that looks. It's probably really busy against my busy top. Pull the cord there. That's nicely closed at the top. And if I wanted extra security, I would face the pocket to my back rather than sticking out. So I will just put that behind me. Have that sitting like that, and nobody will see that there's a pocket in there, and everything's nice and secure. I'm pretty happy with how this one's turned out. I was playing with the idea of stitching straight down the centre of the pocket here so that I could have two compartments. By having the two separate zip pulls means I can open one side separately from the other, and then I might be able to store a couple of different things in there. But Chris and I are going away next month, and we will probably be doing a fair bit of walking, so I think that leaving that big spacious area there, both of our phones and wallets and purses and things can go in there, and food and drinks and essentials can go in the top. So there's our drawstring backpack. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I shall catch you next time. Bye for now.